Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, to kick things off, we're talking about PlayStation 4 emulation on PC with, yes you guessed it, Shad PS4. Now the modding community knows no bounds whatsoever. They've already got a brand new 4x upscaled Armor's texture pack over on Nexus Mods. I'm not joking with you here, and this texture pack is huge. So the overall size of the texture pack just for the armor is over 10 gigabytes, and well, this is looking really, really good. Let me know your thoughts about this texture pack in the comments below. Additionally here, Gravity Rush Remaster is getting in-game. There are still some issues with some textures and text, but at the same time here, we've got more games now in-game. And speaking about PlayStation, next up we're going back one generation and talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3. And RPCS3 has a new update out that supports custom frame limiter based on your monitor's refresh rate. They say here, do not forget that if the game you want to play has a locked frame rate, you have to unlock its frame rate through a patch or settings. This new feature is in the settings menu under the GPU tab, and in that GPU tab you'll see a frame rate option where you can change that frame rate for your display. Next, we're switching from Sony to Nintendo and talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Ryujinx. And Ryujinx got an update here that some fans of a certain game might really like. So as of version 1.1.1386, it allows The Legend of Sword and Fairy to go in game. I've never played this one, but if you have, if you enjoy it, let me know your thoughts about it in the comments below. Next up, we're talking about the Backbone controller, and there's a very interesting thread over on Reddit emulation on Android. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and that's the last time I'm going to say it in this video, because everything I talk about, the link will be in the description below. Anyways, it appears there's a minor or possible major quality control issue with these controllers. So this person here says the left side of the controller died on them, and that might be because of the ribbon connection behind the controller. This seems to be not necessarily a one-off issue. I mean, this person says happened to mine 2 weeks ago, was only 9 months old and never fell down. Someone else said I had the same issue, really poor and a huge shame. And then someone else says here the Razer Kishi stopped working, but a quick Google and they found a replacement ribbon cable for sale. It seems the devices that put stress on the internal ribbon cable are causing them to tear. And there's even more here. This person says, yes, avoid like the plague. I had one that died within 6 months, got the replacement which then died within 3 months. The next replacement I got, I immediately sold it off. Not gonna bother when GameSir makes better build quality at half the price. So I'm not sure if this is just for Backbone controllers or for all expandable controllers that use that ribbon connector. I'll be paying attention to it in the future. If you have a Backbone controller, or if you've got an expandable controller with a ribbon cable and you've had a problem, let me know in the comments below. I am very curious about this one. Next up, we're quickly talking about some drama in the FPGA world. And to be honest with you, the only reason I'm talking about this one is because I was pinged about it a whole bunch of times. So here is the Reddit post. Why is Pramod taking shots at Jotego when Pramod also releases his cores as betas via Patreon? He also claims he does it for preservation, but does not make his cores open source. Am I missing something? Now for reference, Pramod and Jotego are very well-known developers in the FPGA world for making FPGA cores. I don't want to say they're competing against each other, but at the same time, sometimes it seems as if that's the way. Now I took a quick peek at this squabble between Pramod and Jotego, and it appears that Pramod is accusing Jotego or possibly suggesting Jotego releases cores in a broken state in order to string people along via Patreon for donations to gradually improve those cores over time. I don't necessarily think that's true. I could be wrong, but I don't necessarily think that's true, and I don't think there's a lot of weight behind that. I mean, I've seen developers release stuff in betas all the time, and then that helps get people excited. People want to try it out and gradually improve it instead of just holding on to everything for a long period of time and then dropping it as complete. Now, again, the only reason I'm talking about this is because I was pinged a whole bunch about it and I really didn't want to talk about it. My advice here is just to try to stay out of this stuff. I mean, it doesn't really help the community at all. If two developers are squabbling, let them squabble. It doesn't matter. It might matter to one of them, but at the same time, for the gradual community, the general community here, a lot of people just care about the cores, and if they want to support a developer, they will. So my advice here is just ignore the noise, enjoy the product, and be on your way. Now, for full transparency, I don't always follow my own advice, but I do have a ton of respect for different developers out there, and I don't think there's any need for any infighting within the emulation community. The community itself is so small that stuff like this shouldn't be happening. Next up, we're talking about Embracer, and a while back we talked about the big sale of Saber Interactive from Embracer and the whole deal that was currently being worked through, and part of that deal, from my understanding, was the option of also picking up 4A Games and Zen Studios. And it turns out that option may not have been fully exercised, or may not have been exercised at all. So 4A Games and Zen Studios are reported to remain with Embracer. And you may know 4A Games from the Metro series. And interestingly here, Embracer is saying that 4A Games has 2 AAA games currently in development. I'm assuming one of them is going to be Metro. I don't know what the other one is going to be. Maybe it's another spin-off of Metro or something. If you know more details about these 2 AAA games in development, let me know in the comments below. And let me know your thoughts about Zen Studios and 4A Games sticking with Embracer in the comments below. And speaking about not picking up some stuff or possibly canceling some stuff, and next up we're talking about Unity. And Unity has rolled back their runtime fee. They are canceling the controversial runtime fee, which I think a lot of developers are going to like. So they say right here on their website, after deep consultation with our community, customers, and partners, we've made the decision to cancel the runtime fee for our game's customers, effective immediately. So we're reverting our existing seat-based subscriptions model for all gaming customers, including those who adopt Unity 6, the most performant and stable version of Unity yet. They then go on to say, from this point forward, it's our intention to revert to a more traditional cycle of considering any potential price increases only on an annual basis. So it doesn't say that the fees are never going to go up. They're probably going to go up just in different ways here. But this whole controversial fee is now gone. However, it doesn't seem that this announcement has taken Unity out of the woods just yet. I mean, some people are saying if you crawl back to Unity after all this, you're a fool. Don't be surprised when the next "we know it's bad, but we're doing it anyway" comes along. You'll only have yourselves to blame by falling for it again. Forrest here, who I think is a developer over at Innersloth, says, finally, and for the record, Innersloth has already migrated our next games from Unity. We've found a lot of speed and power in a custom platform atop a minimal engine. That said, Among Us no longer has to worry about upgrading for the next-gen consoles. Thanks for that, Unity. I'm very curious to see what happens on this one moving forward, and I'm curious to see if this puts Unity in enough developers' good books again, or if the damage has been done and people have moved on. I mean, Godot seems very popular, and even more so now because of Unity's decisions. And speaking about decisions, next up here we're talking about Flappy Bird. And Flappy Bird is reported to be coming back, but this is a little bit different than you might expect. So it's being reported that a group of fans bought the Flappy Bird trademark and have published a brand new game, or are publishing a brand new game. Now this is a little bit different from the initial Flappy Bird here. This one is reported to have microtransactions and some other stuff like that. So it might not be everyone's cup of tea. I mean, if you don't believe me, here's some comments right from that video. Level systems, microtransactions, this is going to be awful. You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain, or you get brought back from the dead by NFT bros and made the villain anyway. Finally, Flappy Bird with microtransactions, this is all we ever wanted. What made Flappy Bird great was its simplicity. This completely missed that. And on a side note, here's a tweet from the Flappy Bird revision team, which is a completely separate team altogether, not related to Flappy Bird, at least not directly. So they say development screenshot for the upcoming Flappy Bird clone, which will be available on the following platforms: Windows, Linux, macOS, iOS, Android, watchOS, tvOS, web, and BSD. And it's going to be open source. And speaking about clones, wow, I got great transitions today. Next up, we're talking about an interesting clone, at least it looks like a clone to me, of a design from 2015, and this is in regards to Bungie and NERF and their new design. So Tofu Bunny says, so the NERF Ace of Spades directly lifts a commission I did in 2015. This is not similar or a coincidence. You can see the same brush strokes and scratches, smudges. And looking at the top and bottom image here, and there are a lot of similarities. I mean, even look at the spades here on the handle. Very, very similar. It has been reported that Bungie is looking into this, although I don't know what's going on here, but I would say this is a case of copying. I mean, just looking at these images, and they almost look the exact same. I mean, they just look like different colorways of the exact same gun. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. Next up is a heads up here if you're a fan of PlayStation games on Steam. PlayStation is right now having a pretty big publisher sale with deals up to 75% off. Right now, some good deals in my book are Horizon Zero Dawn Complete Edition, which is sitting at 75% off, and I think that's the most it's ever been. And God of War sitting at 60% off, which I think is also the most it's ever been. And pro tip, if you're trying to figure out if something on Steam is a good deal or not, just head on over to the SteamDB and check out your game here. It'll tell you the price history and you can get a good idea of whether or not this reduction is worth it. And continuing to talk about Steam, next up we're talking about the Steam Deck. And if you've got a Steam Deck on your wish list, now might be a good time to pick one up, at least the older LCD model. Now they're currently 15 and 25% off, and for reference, I have an older LCD model Steam Deck, and I've got no reason to upgrade here, and in fact I have the cheapest one possible, and I'm very happy with it. However, if you are looking for an OLED version, they are still at full price. And on a side note, if you wanted even more savings and you're comfortable treading into the refurbished territory, they've got even more sales here. Now currently they seem to be sold out of the 64 gig version, but at the same time here, the 256 version for an extra $50 is a pretty darn good deal. Next up here, you don't see this very often at all, but apparently the entire staff of Annapurna Interactive has resigned. And this is the entire staff, so basically the company's got no one to develop their games. So from my understanding, here's their official statement. All 25 members of the Annapurna Interactive team collectively resigned. This was one of the hardest decisions we have ever had to make, and we did not take this action lightly. Now, for those wondering, the resignations came in the wake of a dispute between the Annapurna Interactive president and studio head. Apparently, there were negotiations taking place to spin off the video game division as an independent entity. And after they failed to reach an agreement, they pulled out of negotiations and flat out resigned. Now, I think I said developers earlier and I meant to say publishers. Anyways, here, if you take a look, Annapurna Interactive is probably best known for Stray, which has an overwhelmingly positive review score over on Steam with over 129,000 reviews. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. I can't remember ever seeing something like this before, but I could be wrong here. And Annapurna is huge. This is a very big indie publisher. Next up here, we're talking about Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, and it appears that the starting base roster for this game is going to be absolutely huge. A whole bunch of leaks have happened, a whole bunch of images have surfaced online, and people are posting things left, right, and center. All of this stuff is freely available in the public domain now. And it turns out that the roster is going to have something crazy, like almost every single movie character in it. So Dragon Ball Sparking Zero is set to release on October 10th. There's going to be Dragon Ball GT characters in it, which I might have an unpopular opinion here, but I actually really enjoyed the GT series. Anyways, this is one I'm probably going to be picking up, and I'm hoping it's going to work on the Steam Deck. And continuing to speak about leaks, next up we're talking about the upcoming Galaxy S25. And images of this new Samsung phone are leaking online, and it appears we're getting a flat screen and rounded corners. So basically at a high level here, I'm having a hard time seeing the difference between this one and the existing S24. I'm assuming there's going to be a better chip in there, maybe better cameras, and whatever other rumors generally say about a brand new phone here. I mean, probably just minor upgrades. Let me know your thoughts about this one in the comments below. And speaking about upgrades, another great segue. Next up, we're talking about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. And Star Wars Jedi Survivor just got an upgrade in terms of DRM, depending on how you want to view this situation. But it turns out that Star Wars Jedi Survivor has removed denuvo. Additionally, here this new patch brings a bunch of improvements to the game and is supposed to reduce stuttering, improve performance, and even more. If you play Star Wars Jedi Survivor, let me know in the comments below. Moving on, and if you're a fan of Pokemon on the Game Boy Advance, you might be a fan of this news. There's a brand new ROM hack out called Pokemon Recharged Pink. It just released, and I guess if you're a fan of Clefairy, you probably will like this ROM hack as well. I'll drop a link to this tweet in the description below, and feel free to check it out. I'm not certain on gameplay on this one. I haven't checked this one out myself, but based on the screenshots, it looks interesting. Next up, if you're a fan of bullet hell games, or I guess bullet heaven as they're calling this one, you might like Hive Jump 2 Survivors. This is a brand new bullet heaven game, and it's an action game, and it's on sale right now for 29% off. I'll drop a link to this Steam page in the description below, and feel free to check it out here. Right now, it's got a very positive review score. And looking at the gameplay, it does look pretty interesting, and the price on this one is very cheap, under $10. Next up is, I would argue, a big win for the Internet Archive and a big win for convenience. Google will now link to the Internet Archive to add more context to search results. I'm not joking with you, this is true. So to see this in action, all you've got to do is go to Google and search for anything, and once you find your search result, just click on the 3 dots beside it. It'll bring up this page here, and this is where you want to click more about this page. Click on that, it'll bring you to an entirely new page here, and scroll right to the bottom, and it'll say see previous versions on Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. And last up here, we're talking about SFD. SFD stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Software Freedom Day, depending on how you want to interpret that. Anyways, SFD is a worldwide celebration of free and open source software. Their goal in this celebration is to educate the worldwide public about the benefits of using high-quality, free and open source software in education, government, at home, and in business, basically everywhere. So the Digital Freedom Foundation coordinates SFD at a global level, providing support and a point of collaboration. But volunteer teams around the world organize local SFD events to impact their own communities. So if you are curious about this one and wanted to explore a little bit, learn a little bit, meet some new people, and maybe even touch some grass outside, this might be an event for you. It might be worth checking out. In fact, System 76, I've got their shirt on today, is having a pretty big event in their actual office. Now, Software Freedom Day is happening on September 21st, which is next Saturday. And if you happen to be in Denver, Colorado, feel free to stop by System 76. Tell them Mr. Sujano sent you. They probably won't have anything for you. They probably won't know who I am. But maybe you can tell them to subscribe to me, and that'll be a win for everybody. Anyways, here they're going to be having open source trivia, Linux bingo, and even more, so it might be a pretty good time. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff in the legendary one fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.